Welcome. My name is Wang. I'm a lecturer in urban analytics. Today, me and my colleague Colin Mack will present our subtle research on To GenAI or not to GenAI coding-related assessment, emerging findings on detection, plagiarism, processes, and institutional guidelines. So the question driving this project is very simple. We try to answer a question. If an assessment involves coding and text, how can the teacher or educator tell whether it was written by AI or not? Three features makes coding harder to assess than written work because code looks structurally similar across students, so similarity probably cannot be used as evidence or proof, and detection tools carry high false positive rates and have been documented in the literature that may bring bias in assessment. And code reuse is already normalized in this field. Borrowing from Stack Overflow, for example, is a common practice. So whether GenAI blur that line further, we want to answer this question. So this study targets three under-examined gaps. Most research takes top-down view, that is either from policies, tools, or frameworks, and we know far less about what educators in the front line actually do when marking on the daily basis. And secondly, the literature is heavily focusing on text or writing focused. Code assessments are structurally different and largely absent from the research. And thirdly, there's a geographic and disciplinary bias towards North American and computer science field. The field like urban analytics, where both text and code coexist in one assessment and seems understudied in the existing literature. We use a two-phase qualitative design for this research. In phase one, 10 teaching staff have been invited to participate in a written reflection exercise. This has happened on a team channel, and these were covering their expertise, the detection experiences, and how they respond to suspicious cases, and the institutional guideline support. These reflections directly shape our phase two analysis, where we invite six participants further into our focus group analysis. And this helps us to explore the themes in depth and identify cross-disciplinary variations. All the data in the focus group was audio recorded, transcribed, and will be analyzed semantically. Because our research involving colleagues' personal reflections and comments, a full ethic approval has been obtained, and a data management plan were carefully designed from the beginning. So from our findings based on the reflection analysis, that is our phase one, we find for the first theme concerning how staff develop their expertise in detecting AI, and answer is largely by themselves. And participants consistently rate their confidence higher for text than for code at the moment. And they identify that there are no formal training pathways. And staff describe learning through their own AI use, tracking student cohorts over time, and informal peer conversations on special cases as well. One participant put it like this: their criteria for spotting AI has not evolved because nothing institutional has driven it to change. So there could be a structural gap in this. So when it comes to actual detecting AI in code, participants describe a set of informal red flags rather than any systematic method. This could include overly complex solutions beyond what has been taught, heavily commented clauses, and perfectly documented functions, and code structure recognizable as GPT-style output. But participants were also clear that these signals cannot be used evidence to raise cases as plagiarism. As one put it as this, I don't have a systematic way for checking. I use experience. This is harder than text, and I'm not confident telling if code is 100% AI generated. Participant also indicates that there are no institutional tools for code-specific detection. Turnitin is not fit for purpose here.
Okay, moving on to theme 3, we identified these as the actions taken after detection. What we discovered was, in terms of referral, a range of uncertainty. Staff tended to refer upwards to the convener or above to the plagiarism officer. But whilst suspicions were raised, and sometimes there was opportunity to speak with peers, the actual outcome was unclear in terms of what the actual decision on the plagiarism was, and the actual process was unclear for inexperienced staff as well. As we could see from some of the quotations, one participant said, "I don't know what further action process exists. I only refer to the course lead." In terms of borderline cases, there was a problem with evidence where it was ambiguous. And because staff knew the length of the process and the additional workload, that meant that time constraints, workload pressures led staff to absorb the cases rather than escalate them. So as a result, these kind of cases were often ignored, and there was inconsistencies about whether they were or they weren't, because there's no clear shared threshold among staff for when to report and when not to. As one participant said, the majority of cases are actually less clear and borderline in my view. When I suspect that I don't have enough evidence, I usually don't refer. Theme 4 related to attitudes and institutional support. There was no uniform views here, especially in terms of being prohibitive and denying or trying to ban the use of AI. And quite a lot, if not most, of our participants saw GenAI as a tool that could be used appropriately if it was aligned pedagogically. So we had a spectrum here between people who were cautious or more restrictive, as this participant had said here. Yes, it can be used, but it needs to be acknowledged. There was more pragmatic views as well about how to actually teach people to use it, to incorporate it, but to use it appropriately. And those who were more open to its advantages and were more actively embracing it. Here, for example, some people said that it was actually better than copying from other sources because there was an idea of cognitive thinking about what to ask, how to ask, and try to interpret what was gotten back rather than just simply copying and pasting from something online. In terms of the participants reported that they didn't have enough support. There wasn't any agreed tools or usable tools. There was no training and there was no clear guidance. By no reliable tools, particularly Turnitin, and the percentages that were flagged weren't always in any way correlative with actual GenAI cases. Sometimes you could have very low Turnitin scores, but plagiarism officers could find clear evidence of GenAI usage. There was no training provided, no clear guidelines, and in terms of the marking, so, for example, if maybe 45 minutes was given to a summative assessment, that wouldn't take into account all the additional work that had to be done for looking for plagiarism and AI checks, and the actual amount of work that would need to be done after in terms of referral, which would be marking up the reports, which can take quite some time. So that ambiguity then related to the institutional support more broadly. This extreme laissez-faire approach by the university, said one participant, makes it difficult to engage with a problematic area, obviously, in both sides, for both staff and students.
The focus group analysis is ongoing, which actually confirms what we find from phase 1, but adds depth and complexity to the reflection dataset. We find that detection is probably not linked to expertise directly, as one participant mentioned that students need to have a stronger base knowledge to better use AI after going to the workforce. This leads to our future work in this project. We want to go beyond the educator's perspective to examine the staff-student relationship directly. And we want to explore student views on acceptable AI use, disclosure norms, and perceived risk, and try to align with what we find from educators' perspective. We also plan to pilot some AI-aware assessment designs and to evaluate their feasibility, workload implications, and whether they are fair to students or not. So this is all from us about this presentation. Hope you enjoy it.